shout out to the veterans of this country who've given their service, and I also want to give a shout out to the veterans of the court systems who have given their time and efforts to try to make the system more fair. I'm the author of a book called Divorce from Justice. It was the first book that exposed the divorce court industry, how people are often exploited by lawyers and judges whom the system is supposed to protect. Earlier, I wrote the first consumer protection report for New York City to extend basic rights to consumers in divorce cases, basically to protect consumers from their own lawyers. And it's something called a Statement of Client Rights that I wrote and is now institutionalized in New York for about 25 years, where every divorce lawyer has to give the client the Statement of Client Rights so the client knows how to protect themselves from their lawyer. So let me start with some background. We know from research that victims of domestic violence face their greatest risk of being harmed, not during the relationship, but after the relationship. A 2021 study by Friedel found that nearly half, 46% of family-related mass homicides happened after separation. And that's the context for what happens in the courts. Family court is supposed to protect families and reduce conflict, but what I have found through years of research, investigation, and case review is that it too often amplifies the conflict. In every case, lawyers are representing clients in a process that produces winners and losers. And as I documented in this book, which is old enough to be a mother, but unfortunately is still relevant today, the lawyers that people often choose, mainly women, are there mainly for their own financial interest. I coined the term divorce court industry because it's not just the two parties that are dividing up the assets or fighting over their children. It's the lawyers who are profiting from this. And it's really a four-way financial split often with the assets. So in this system of entrenched interests where the protection of the family is not recognized, it gets even worse because the legal profession is self-regulated, and there's really no guardrails to protect people from unscrupulous lawyers or from judges who overstep their power. So a woman who's been abused, who's just trying to protect her children, can walk into a courtroom expecting justice. Instead, she finds herself punished again. She can be forced into debt, sanctioned, stripped of her rights by the very court that's supposed to protect her. In truth, the family court has become the new arena where domestic violence continues. Only now it's legalized. When the abuser can no longer reach his target directly, he uses the court to do it for him. He enlists a judge, a lawyer, custody evaluator to carry out the same control and coercion, but this time it's through rulings, it's through orders, and it's through fees. In this way, the family court becomes the enabler of continued abuse. And the judges, they have almost unlimited power. As we heard, judges cannot be sued civilly for damages, even when they act maliciously or corruptly. This means a judge can do almost anything. They can do almost anything they want, knowing that they are not going to be held accountable. I've seen this as an investigator, and I've seen this as a lawyer. And there's very little a person can do to challenge it. In the late 1990s, citizen groups in South Carolina and California hired me to investigate allegations of misconduct by judges, evaluators, and guardians ad litem. Citizen groups formed a collective in order to pool their resources to commission me so that I could research what was going on, where the media would not dare to go. I conducted 3 separate investigations in Sacramento, San Jose, and Marin counties. People came forward, mothers, fathers, grandparents, to share their cases. They did so at great personal risk. In many states, family court files are sealed and judges can issue gag orders against anyone who speaks publicly. Women know if they anger the judge, they can lose their child or children entirely. So when these parents, when they chose to come forward, it really was an enormous act of courage. The media, too, has been afraid to cover this issue. Reporters, they fear being accused of bias or interfering with the judicial ruling. They're afraid of being sued. But what I learned is that when you gather patterns, when you show not just one case, but you show 8, 9, 10 cases with the same judge, the same evaluator, the same harm, it becomes undeniable. And that's when the sunlight breaks through. And the results were powerful. In Marin County, within 6 days of the release of my report, the judge that I investigated left the bench and family law, never to return again. The same happened with the commissioner who had quasi-judicial powers. It hurt many, many children. The same day that my report was issued, she resigned. So that's what the sunlight does. It disinfects, it protects, it reforms the entrenched interests, and we know there are entrenched interests of the legal profession, the unchecked power of judges. These are formidable barriers. But transparency, truth-telling, and citizen action work. The lesson is this: when people come together, when they refuse to be silenced, when they expose patterns of harm instead of isolated stories, change becomes possible. So my message today is simple. We cannot continue to allow our courts to operate in the darkness. We cannot allow secrecy to shield injustice. The family court must be accountable to the people, not to itself. Because justice at its heart is not a private matter, it's a public trust.